with the medical facility. She's actually with United Healthcare now, but she was able to speak on, the maintenance and environmental portions of, a health organization.
When was the interview conducted?
When was it? It was on Monday.
Monday of
this week. We had some back and forth going, trying to figure out a good time to call. So we finally got in touch with her on Monday.
And how long did the interview take?
It was a good 20, 25 minutes.
I see. And was she at work when you called?
No, actually, she was on her way out of town, so she was in the car, and her husband was in the car as well, and he also works in the industry, and so he was able to provide some information as well. So it was like an interview with two people.
2 for 1, that's great.
Yeah, it was great.
All right, so you had a list of questions?
I did.
Did you record the questions or did you transcribe the answers?
I transcribed the answers.
Okay, so what was your first question?
Well, first I asked her what she did, and she told me now with United Healthcare, she is a quality consultant with providers who have Medicare patients. So she kind of reaches out to them and explains to them what kind of offerings they have for their CMS patients. So for example, mammograms, we have the opportunity to pay for mammograms, would you be interested in participating in this program? So that's kind of what she does now. Okay. So, I'm sorry?
Question two?
Yeah, so basically what I said with, what we discussed with Arcania is, I asked her about, what was one of the questions here? The facilities, the building themselves, and some key concerns for managing facilities. And she focused on a lot about proper accreditations for facilities, environmental credentials like with OSHA, licensing for the practitioners within the clinic or the hospital, and anyone who's going to be working with, like, say, medical waste or the Sharps containers or any of that kind of stuff. All those people have to have, training, and has to be documented, because at any time auditors can come through and they're going to ask, what are your practices, what are your procedures, where are they listed, who are the people that are doing these things, and do they know how to properly dispose of chemical waste or whatever it is, do you have proof? And so they're always constantly having to update their policies and procedures just to meet the recommendations of the accreditation agencies.
Those accreditation auditing visits announced, or they just spring them?
No, they're secret. And one of the ones that she announced was the ACHA. It's for healthcare administration. It must be in compliance. So that was one of the agencies that she mentioned specifically that will send a secret inspector or auditor to look at the exam rooms and make sure that they have the necessary precautions. Where do you keep your cleaning supplies? Where, who has access to that kind of thing.
Once they're on site, though, they announce who they are, right?
Oh, yeah, that's correct. So they say, good morning, I'm here, I'm the auditor, I'd like to take a look at, your ER, or not your ER, let's say it was an exam room, and I'd like to see your policies and procedures. And at that moment, all that has to be available at that time. They can't be scrambling and say, oh, give me 5 minutes. They have to kind of make sure that that's all there.
Right.
So she did say that they specifically work with a company called Stericycle, and they're the ones that they contract to remove medical waste. And they said when they contract with Stericycle that the company will come in to train the staff at the hospital or the clinic on how to properly dispose of medical waste, and that's all documented, and that's part of the fee that they pay. And then Stericycle will come and remove the waste. There's a regular schedule. They know when these people are coming. They have to show proper identification, and there's a whole process in order to remove this type of waste. And that's, again, a policy and procedure that's available to auditors, and that the company Stericycle actually, it's one of their things that they do when they're contracted with a hospital or a clinic, which is interesting.
Did you mention what the fee was for the service?
She didn't. I should have asked. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's not cheap.
No, I'm sure it isn't either. Did you go online look at the organization?
I did a little bit. I'm actually a little familiar with Stericycle. I've heard of them before, and I know they have offices here in the Chicagoland area where I work. So I know they're quite a big operation.
Their website doesn't contain the fees.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Their website doesn't show the fees.
No, that's all negotiated.
Oh, I see. Is there a
Yeah.
starting point from which you negotiate?
I don't know. That's a good question. I could find out. I could look.
Why do you do that?
Okay.
Could be worth.
So then we went into talking about billing and coding and how it's a vital role with hospitals, and I know we discussed that in class last period, but that sort of was like the bridge into what Ms. Arcania's husband does, which is interesting. And he actually is one of the people that negotiates the contracts. He works for the insurance company, and he negotiates the rates with providers. And it was kind of interesting the way he was explaining it, at least in Central Florida, that the reimbursement rate is negotiable, and it's I found it interesting because it was basic supply and demand of economics. So if there's a large amount of specialists of the area, like say he said cardiologists, for example, they're plentiful in Florida. So because there's so many, the insurance company doesn't have to pay full reimbursement. They can say, well, we have so many cardiologists, we'll give you 80% of what your asking fee is. Whereas endocrinologists, they're few and far between. They can command a higher reimbursement rate of 100%. And he said what he noticed with one of the things that he talked about was oral surgeons. They are actually even more few and far between. And they in Central Florida, the oral surgeons got together and formed a conglomerate and pushed back on the insurance companies and said, we know you have no one else in this area to contract with, so you know what, you have to pay us 100% plus another 50%. So it's kind of interesting to see how the doctors have control of that. So if you need oral surgery in Central Florida, there's only going to be one doctor that's close by, and you're going to have the insurance company is going to have to pay their rate plus an extra. So that was interesting. Basic supply and demand. So if the doctor or specialization is in large supply, then or in the demand is not that high, then they don't have to pay as much. And that's sort of how he says it works. It was interesting.
What else?
Let's see. We also discussed a little bit what you had posted on the forum about. I asked them what they thought the qualifications should be for somebody who was on the board of directors of a hospital, and they said that they didn't really think that any specific training was necessary, but that the entire board needed to be diverse. So they needed, if somebody was an expert in, if somebody was a doctor and they were an expert in a certain specialization that clinic, services or that's their service, then that's great. They have that clinical perspective, but then they also need somebody who, maybe has an accounting degree that can crunch the numbers, without being influenced by, the clinical side of it. And then you also need somebody who's an MBA that knows how to run things, So they didn't say you necessarily needed to have healthcare background, but that you all needed to work together with a group of people that were specialists in their particular area. So somebody maybe that will be raising money for the hospital. So they're going to be completely different. Their perspective is going to be completely different than somebody who's crunching the numbers, but they all kind of have to work together.
Had they had any contact with board members before?
They didn't specifically say that they did, but that was just their opinion.
I see. All right. Did you get into a discussion of hospital safety and/or risk management with them?
I did, and unfortunately, Ms. McGriff didn't really have a lot of information about risk management. She wasn't really involved in that portion of the clinic. She did say, though, that accreditations played a big part of that in gaining environmental credentials and stuff. So that was all kind of part of it, she said. So, but she didn't really have any specific details about risk management.
Any other questions you asked?
I think that was it. We kind of talked a lot about that. Yeah, just about billing, insurance.
Did she
That was about it.
express willingness to take a follow-up phone call from either you or I?
She said she would be available if we needed to follow up with her, yes. But she was going out of town, so it might be a couple days.
All right, all right. There are a couple of other questions we might want to pose, but
Okay.
that sounds interesting. You didn't happen to touch on cybersecurity. I know that's Ms. Almeida's bailiwick this evening, but she didn't say anything about ransom.
No,
So on.
no, we didn't touch on that, no.
Okay. Ms. Almeida,
Yes, sir.
tell us about yours.
So I interviewed Dr. White on July 7th regarding cybersecurity for hospital systems. Our interview lasted about 40 minutes or so. It was quite lovely to deal with.
Really?
Really?
That's good news.
I have to say, is this recording?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah.
Can we turn it off?
No, he was actually, I don't have to hide the fact that it was actually sort of an exciting conversation and a frightening conversation. He seems to know a lot about blackmail and the black market and the dark web and all of these fascinating things that I've never heard of before.
You've not heard of the black web?
I had
Dark
not
web?
heard of the dark web. Well, maybe I had, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. I wasn't sure that it was a real thing.
It's
but
a real thing.
I am very convinced now that it is.
There was a reference to it this morning's project.
Was there?
Yes, some guy went there.
To the dark web.
A local guy,
Yeah.
and found a service he was looking for.
Oh.
Oh, yes, and when the service personnel
When the staff
showed up, they held him hostage, took his money, stole his car.
Wow.
Yes, all from going, don't go on the dark. It's dark for a reason. Yeah, there are bad stuff out there.
Yeah.
That's
So.
where what's his name was on. The guy they caught in Frisco who was selling drugs took his name from Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wait a
yeah.
minute. I did hear this. Wait a
Yes.
minute. What it was?
Something Robert. Something.
Pirate Roberts?
Something like that.
Yeah. I just watched that movie a couple days ago.
Luckily.
Dread Pirate Roberts. That's it.
I knew Dredd was in it.
He was moving his mouth and it was going
Dredd Pirate Roberts. Yes, they caught him. He was from Texas. But he was selling drugs and other things on the web. And they tracked him down.
I mean, the whole idea of it is frightening. It truly is. And,
What did he tell you about it?
well, so just basically we started the interview with my basic questions. How do we keep the hospital safe? And basically, he started to explain to me that employees are your biggest risk factor to cybersecurity. And I asked why, because employees get bored and they start searching the web and they start clicking on links that they should be clicking, and they expose you to all sorts of malware and viruses. So how do you deal with that? Obviously, you can't take away internet access from all of your employees, but you can begin to do egressing, which is they limit what employees can click on. So you can be going through, searching different websites, and then you'll get this error message saying that this site cannot be accessed for whatever reason. That's your organization limiting different websites based on different criteria. So that's like one level of protecting the organization.
So there would be a whole set of websites on the dark web.
So the dark web is actually part of the deep web,
Yeah.
which is not accessible by most browsers.
Okay.
You actually have to find an alternative way to access
in my head for a second, I lost it.
Yeah,
What they call it.
yeah,
Yes.
the deep web.
Yes.
So basically, you could try to do a search like accessing the deep web, and you could never get there by your typical browser. There are different ways to get in to access
Tor? It's Tor.
Tor, yeah.
Tor, yes.
Tor.
I knew it was in
Exactly
there
right.
somewhere in my head, yes.
That's exactly.
Tor, yes. No,
So I didn't dare attempt to
Don't
try
you-
it.
No, there could be people who show up at your door, but they'll be and take things.
And certainly not from my work computer.
No.
So
Did he suggest that that training might be a way to mitigate some of that?
training staff,
Employees?
yeah,
Yes. If
yes.
your board don't do this,
Mm-hmm.
go work out, walk in the hall, do squats.
He said that the bigger issue is disgruntled employees who are not getting what they want. You have, he used the example, which was really interesting to me, where you have a physician who could get really sort of out of sorts just because he can't access certain pieces of information. There are like IT restrictions on his access. And people like that, they're really, really intelligent. They're go-getters. They'll try to hack the system themselves. If they can't do it, they actually try to hire people like Dr. White to do it for them. He mentioned being offered money on several occasions by other CFOs of large organizations, by people in high positions in various organizations. And of course, he declined. But it was all very, very interesting. The whole conversation was.
So it's not just the Russians.
It's not just the Russians. It's our local people. It's disgruntled employees. It's people who have been let go from big corporations, big organizations. They have a vendetta against you. It's people who are trying to get the inside scoop. Maybe it's your competitor, and they're trying to hack into your system just to get your inside data.
Did he have some sort of security for disgruntled employees internally first? Did he offer something?
He did not. What he offered for, especially an organization like a hospital system, is training your employees to keep your passwords secure, to never share them with anybody. That I think is the single most important thing, because what happens is if I'm a hacker and I want to get additional information, let's say your only access is to maybe our billing system. But if I can get your username and your ID, and I can log in as you, and I can try to get additional access throughout the system, I can do so much more easily as an employee than as an outsider. So it just takes one person's email address, username, login to start that chain of events. So I was
He didn't mention the Russians at all, or did he?
No,
I mean, it's
I
outside the assignment, but I thought he might have brought them up. I'll do that with him. But yeah, so far so good. Good.
So one of the things. So of course, the whole idea was how do you protect yourself against malware, and keeping your password secure, stuff like that, is your main thing. But but anything could happen. So you always have to be prepared for that risk, for that the possibility that you will lose access to your data. So how do you address a risk like that? Well, the very first thing you would want to do is shut down your system. And in order to do that, you have to make sure you have backups in place. So the hospital, which I had known, but I didn't realize how serious, how important it was, is they constantly back up every single one of our software systems. I think like every 2 hours they want to back up. And the reason is, should something happen, they want to shut the system down and restore it to the most recent backup before the virus attacked. If you're able to do that, you won't ever have to pay a dime to any ransomware or malware agents, hackers, because you can eliminate the threat. You'll restore the system to that moment or that time prior to the virus attacking your system.
Have you heard any examples of having to pay ransomware?
So we did talk about that, because one of my questions was this: if I'm a $2 billion organization and you are a hacker who's just trying to get my information and you want me to pay you a ransom, why would you only charge me $17,000 like that hospital in Texas? Right? I think it was like a $5 billion organization. Why was it $17,000? And what Dr. White said is that these hackers are just hacking away, like blanket hacking, tons and tons of people, and they have no idea what your net worth is. So that $17,000 ransom could have easily been $2 million. But the odds of someone being able to pay $2 million are much lower than someone willing to pay $17,000. And I thought,
So it's kind of like going to a casino and playing roulette. If you throw down enough balls they're gonna land somewhere.
Right, even if they're like, what, $5 or whatever,
Right.
right? And it kind of reminded me of the discussion we were having about self-pay patients, people who will only pay a $100 bill, they won't pay a $500 bill. Same idea, which is kind of strange. So, that's what he was saying.
Well, suppose on any single day you get two.
Well, yeah,
You made $34,000
like that.
and you didn't have to get out of your bedroom
Exactly.
or wherever. Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
I thought that was fascinating. Some of the things I wanted to talk to him about, not only was the hospital security, cybersecurity, but these sites that we use, these medical record exchange of information, Connect Rhode Island, I think is one of them. We had a guest speaker last year. How do they keep their information secure, right? So basically the idea behind that is that I can go in and register myself as a user, and all of my medical record information can be there and can be accessible by me. But if I go to any ER in the state of Rhode Island, they can also access my medical records. So how do you keep it safe? And I asked him, would you trust that? And he said, A, absolutely not. B, I don't know how to keep it safe because he feels like they're federally funded and the federal government is like decades behind the industry standard for security. Decades.
I can believe that.
And I have to tell you, that scared the bejesus out of me.
Yeah. It's not making me comfortable. I can tell.
No, it's unbelievable.
We would need to get Ms. Zapata back here and ask. I didn't ask her that night, did I?
I did. And
What did she say?
she refused to
She would
answer.
say.
She said that was not her her knowledge space or whatever. She would have to ask the experts.
Well, it's not exactly refusal.
Well, she
didn't know.
Well, I
You
don't
think she
believe
was-
that.
Oh.
I
Well,
call her
in an
bluff.
unguarded moment, I'll have to ask her.
Yeah, so his response was absolutely not. He does not trust EMR
So
or
there's
any
no way to
browsing.
encrypt that stuff, to protect it?
There is, but there's always someone who's going to be able to hack into
Yes.
it. It's because they are far behind the industry standard.
So- Again, the solution, limited as it may be,
The solution
your
is
passwords and so forth.
yes, and encryption. And the solution is keep your private information private. That's what this whole thing boiled down to. Because, I don't know, I have to tell you, I may never open up another account anywhere again after speaking to
I know what you mean, I feel the same way.
So,
This is a bit off the specific topic, but the cover story in Time Magazine this week is about the Russian hacking. They got deeper than most people realize.
I believe that.
They got into several states. They hacked 21, but in some of them they got deeper than others. And if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Janetka, I believe one of them that they got deep in was Illinois. I think it was Illinois. I'll have to go back.
Oh, really?
But they got deep.
The state of Illinois or
Yes.
companies within Illinois?
And in certain counties, and they got deep enough to get names and other identifications. And they even tried to all they needed to do was change one letter. And what would happen is whoever that real person was couldn't vote
Oh my God.
because that name no longer existed.
Right.
They got that close. Now, it got harder because most of these enrollment databases, voters, were so dispersed. But the point is, they were trying it, they succeeded, they learned from having done it, and they're coming back. And at this very, well, maybe it was 4, but between 4 and 6 on NPR tonight on the All Things Considered, is a story about hospital cybersecurity. And the tease, as they say in the trade, was at noon this afternoon. I was listening to it. And the spokesperson was talking about when they hack, not just records they can go into the equipment.
They can.
They can shut down all the life support stuff
They can.
and then try to reboot it before you kill somebody.
They can actually hack into your implantable devices, such as pacemakers and other things like that. Because with each device, there's a two-way data exchange. Whatever is inside your body and whatever's coming out at some monitor or some workstation. And they can actually hack into that, and they can get your information.
You knew that before you talked to Doug?
No.
He told you that.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit, and then today I found additional information, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
It is.
It's frightening.
It is scary.
I'm
And there are
gonna be-
people who are dumb and don't even think it's important.
I didn't think it was possible to hack into a pacemaker. But it is.
But it makes sense, doesn't it?
It is.
As soon as that signal, my spouse's father has one, and he's got a blood pressure machine, so they could hack into any of that through the pacemaker, or vice versa, because it all goes to the cloud.
It's all sort of connected wirelessly. I mean, anytime you have a wireless connection, someone can.
Somebody can get in.
Now, they may not get any benefit out of it except for, messing with your heart rate.
Well, I just assume have my heart rate be my own.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, he didn't have a solution for that either.
No. So encryption is an important thing, and the encryption process protects data from being hacked on several levels. And I think the most important thing is changing your passwords and making sure that all of that is up to date. So encryption sort of locks down your information. It encrypts it in such a way that the average user couldn't just read it. And if you need a password to get into the software, so you can actually understand the message, right?
Did he
It's like a
recommend
key.
any sort of useful best practices, steps in creating a password?
No, we didn't talk about that, but I know at work that's a big deal, and I think they're getting longer and more complex, right? It's numbers and capital letters, lowercase letters, and symbols and all of that.
Did they let you choose?
They let us choose it, yes.
And many people make the mistake of choosing passwords that somehow are associated with them. Their children's names, their pets' names, something that somebody could easily click from one place to another.
Or the good old spring, summer, winter, fall, the standard default password.
I don't know if you asked him this, but when you change a password, like in Word, or Microsoft does it, it prompts you to do it, like our email, and it rates how strong it is. Did he say anything about that?
No, we didn't talk about that. No. I asked him different questions about security. For example, Google was using Google over Firefox provide some level of greater security. And he said that those browsers are not required to make things more secure. They would never take on the liability of all that. That basically, if they happen to have an upgrade, some new upgrade or a new patch in their system, it could be much more secure for that time. But hackers are always hacking, right? So whatever they've just corrected, a hacker can make worse very, very soon thereafter. So as far as the browsers go, no, I wouldn't have any faith in their level of adding more security. Then I asked about internet providers, such as Cox or Full Channel or something like that. And he said that they absolutely don't provide any security. He equated it to a plumbing, that they hook up the pipe, and whatever comes through, you choose whether or not you drink the water. So, and that makes sense to me. I get it. Then it's your responsibility to not go to dangerous websites that, and there are websites that are worse to visit than others, you know where I'm going, right? I don't have to say it on tape, do I?
Hold it there, Liz.
I'm blushing. A ton of virus.
They're doing it at work.
Yes.
Now, did you get into the issue of IP addresses and being able to track IP addresses?
No. Nope, we
Did you
didn't get
mention
into
that?
He didn't mention it to me, but
That's one of the ways they tracked Dread. What was his name, Ms. Janeka? Dread Pirate Roberts?
Yes, Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yes, and he was on the dark web, so it made it harder. But then he went to San Francisco, and they were watching for him, not they were watching for it for a number of reasons. But he was sitting in a public computer, and they knew at that point where he was because he made a mistake. He had some package shipped to him. And so they followed the package, and they knew he was in San Francisco. When he was in San Francisco, they began looking for his signature on the IP addresses.
Oh,
That's how they track the Russians. That's how they know it's the Russians that went into Ms. Janetka's state's databases and stuff. They track the IP addresses, even though they it's harder when they're linked to other computers. They try to throw the trail off, but if you're diligent enough, you can follow it back.
Once you have that IP
to
address.
the IP address, and you know where it is.
That's right.
Did you get into the tracing of those kinds of things at all?
No.
No?
No. We didn't get into that. We talked a lot about keeping the hospital system safe.
Yes.
And really, I mean, it truly just came down to having really good passwords, a really great backup system, being able to shut down quickly and having a very fast turnaround with getting that system back up. So if some sort of ransomware attack occurred, you could just kind of wipe them out and not pay a dime. You would be self-sufficient in the fact that you could restore your own system. Funny story. Here in New England is our transcription system has been attacked by ransomware. So
Did they get it?
I'm sorry?
Did they pay it?
Well, so we outsource to a transcription company, and they're one of our vendors, and they're frozen. They won't pay it, but they won't.
They can't get the stuff back.
They can't get the stuff back. So we are actually. At first, we were doing pen and paper transcription, and that didn't go over very well. And that only lasted a few hours. And they have a new system in place already called Dragonware. So to me, I think it's just shocking the way that this kind of plays out a bit, because I feel like everything we touch in this class is happening in my real life. And that's just one example.
Well, I wouldn't want to take that to make it bad for you, but
Wow.
yeah. What I try to do is make sure that our courses are relevant.
Well, this was definitely relevant. So, and then I asked, I mean, are we going to pay the ransom, or the vendor? Will that vendor be paying the ransom?
And the answer was?
The answer was no. So they must have a plan B. But it
Yeah,
definitely
the
wasn't.
plan B sounds like they're going to pay it, okay? But whatever the ransomware has got is locked up. It's like taking stuff and putting it in a vault.
That's right.
And
And
then
they
spinning the code, the dial, and not telling you how to get in.
That's right. So they encrypt all of the information, and they won't give you the password, the key, unless you pay them. That's how the ransomware works. And I mean, it's just becoming wildly popular in the U.S. right now. You're hearing more and more hospitals being attacked.
Yes, I know, and that's exceptionally troubling. So the internet is the Wild West of the 21st century.
It certainly is.
That's
He recommended Cisco as one of the best firewalls for a hospital system. I think school systems probably use it too. I guess it's a very good
Yeah,
one.
Cisco, there are a number of people, organizations.
We use Cisco too, I believe, at
That's one of the
Walgreens.
reasons their stock price is so good.
Oh, yeah, I should.
Yeah. You know, I did want to add that Walgreens, I talked to my manager about this a couple of months ago, about like our internet securities and things like that. And he told me, and the rumor is, we have some sort of like control room in like the C-suite building where the president and the CEOs and all those people have their offices. And it's like on total lockdown, and like only like people that have been completely like approved by security are allowed to go in there, and all they do all day long is just monitor all this internet stuff that you're talking about, like malware and all that stuff, and making sure that our systems are secure, because not only do we have medical information from patients coming into our pharmacies, we also have payment information, for people using the store and buying things. So we could get like a double whammy. So I heard that our security is like pretty, intense up there.
Did Dr. Wright mention anything about the cost of this stuff, like Cisco?
No, we didn't. I should have asked that question, but I know that from my personal experience, I've seen some of the bids that go out for these vendors, and they're millions. I mean, Millions.
On,
So a very small doctor's office or a small group practice would not be able to protect themselves in the same way that a hospital system can and does, which gets into the whole why are organizations merging? Why are these physician practices merging with these larger health systems? It's because of things like this. They cannot survive on their own. They just can't.
because you can't support all that stuff.
That's right.
Oh, jeez. Anything else?
I said, why don't we just lock everybody off the internet and just give them access to the websites that they need to get to? And his response was this. Imagine if you had an ED, an emergency department, and every single person that came in, you would scan them for weapons, you'd give them a pat down, you'd make them go through some sort of like metal detecting machine, and every single person that came in would have that much trouble. Eventually, it's just impossible. You couldn't treat the right patients. Your patients would die before they could get in. He said it's very similar to the web. You can't prevent every threat. You sort of have to let things flow and address things as they happen. And I thought,
So you have to be reactive, you can't, there's no way
you
to
can't
be
be
proactive.
proactive. You can to a certain degree.
Like with
but-
Cisco firewalls
Right.
and passwords.
Correct. But just to block everything out, it's unrealistic. It would never work.
It's unleashed.
Right. So you need people to be able to do what they need to do, and you need to be prepared to address anything that happens along the way. You have to be prepared. So it didn't make me feel any better, but I do take it as fact.
Yeah, he knows what he's saying.
Absolutely.
He works with it daily. Wow, that's good. That's good. I think both of you ladies carried out the assignment as I had hoped you would. So now we come to the issue of board training.
Mm.
And our own Ms. Janetka, I thought, posted something useful. I thought we would discuss briefly at least this evening. Pardon me,
That's loud.
I'm allergic to scary stuff. We're at 5:50, thank you. Okay, it is in the forum that is now open. And, look, there's even more. Is it in here? Let's look. Is it? Nope. Where is that list, Ms. Janetka? Where is that?
That wasn't it?
It is.
I
That
asked
wasn't it.
about,
Oh, here it is. Yep. I'm looking right at it.
yeah.
Meet board educational and training needs, including new board members, our orientation and training. That's what I wanted to look at a little bit this evening.
Yeah.
So we have some information on that from Ms. Janetka's interview with Hirkania and her significant other. They mentioned diversity as a need. They mentioned business acumen, whether it's educational or in some form of practice. I heard MBA. Well, there was another one, Ms. Janetka. What was it? There were three things, as I recall. MBA, diversity, and what was the other one?
Oh, like community philanthropical
Oh, yes,
Or
grant writing, fundraising.
fundraising. Yeah.
I thought there was one other.
Here's the list he gave me. Yeah, it was like statisticians, so like accounting, healthcare law, philanthropy, a MBA, clinical with doctors.
Yeah, all of that makes sense. Of course, that makes for a very difficult task for anybody putting together a board. Did Hirkania and Mr. McGriff mention anything about board sizes? Did I ask you that already?
No, they did not mention anything about board sizes.
Is there anything that you had uncovered in your research that would suggest board size?
Oops, I'm sorry, I just unmuted myself. I do believe that boards are typically, I think they say 12 to 15 people. That
Sometimes
was in the chapter that I read in the book.
it depends on the culture of the organization.
Right, right.
I worked in one that, we had a board meeting that had 33 members. And the room you had to be in was so huge that nobody could involve themselves at a time. I knew a guy who was the chief financial officer, ran a $3 billion organization, and their board was 9 members. And that's partly because they had a pretty good staff, because he was a pretty good person. But yeah, 12, 9, I would say, to 15, yeah, it's probably the general size. Going over 15, and you've got like a circus. You need to be able to coordinate with those people. They didn't talk about any sort of how often the board ought to meet.
No.
I would think that would be a minimum.
I think it's as often as need be.
Well, I think most of the time with a hospital, they probably have regular meetings.
We have monthly board meetings scheduled,
I think
and I'm sure they have.
That's probably pretty common. One way to find out, of course, is the literature. By the way, didn't I send you an email with a attachment list of meeting?
Today?
Yes,
You sent me many emails today.
I did.
Yes, you did. I was very happy.
Maybe they're all the same one I'm thinking
It could
about. But I didn't send you one, Ms. Janetka?
No, I didn't get any emails from you.
Oh, you know what?
Actually,
Because all of my intentions went down the drain when somebody came in to work on a capstone. And that's, when you wait to do the capstone in my office, it starts getting a little bit more complex. All right, I'm going into the literature from the course, and I'm going to academic search complete. And I'm going to choose all the databases. I sent you, Ms. Almeida, an article, at least one, on cybersecurity in hospitals.
Okay, yes, I did see that.
Okay. Can you pull that up for us? No, I forgot what's it. Oh,
I'm trying to get into the email now. But my passwords keep changing.
I'm not doing it. Okay, if I just use the term hospital boards, I get 28,175 courses. Okay, so now I want to do,
So you're not having any trouble with your EBSCO?
I had something earlier this afternoon, but I think it was me rather than EBSCO. But no, I haven't had any trouble.
I'm wondering if the computer that I'm using is actually blocking the website.
It could. It could.
I think it might be.
There was a student last night who suddenly has encountered problems with Panopto. And he recently changed his software. It's a malware. It's antivirus. Let's see, Ms. Zanetka, can you see the screen that I see?
yes, I can see it.
Let's see. Look at this trustee workbook. Let's go look at it, see what it says. Oh, it's going to be full text. Meeting standards not the same as adopting best practices. All right, let's go see what it says. It is full text, right, Ms. Janetka?
Yes.
Trustee workbook. Okay. Let's see.
But isn't a trustee only a volunteer on the board?
In a manner of speaking, that's what most boards are. However, I understand your point. In order to be a volunteer in some nonprofits, you have to make a donation to the organization. Yes. I was asked to be a board member at the YMCA.
Oh,
Right. That's what I said. Oh, isn't that nice? And what are the responsibilities? Well, first you have to donate a minimum of $1,500. Oh, thank you.
did you do it?
No. I donate, but I do not donate to the YMCA. I didn't want to be taking up my Tuesday nights once a month, listening to people who didn't know what they were doing. But I digress. look at the beginning exercise here, Ms. Janetka. It says, before reading further, please consider the following questions. What do you think are the 3 to 5 most important characteristics of a great board? Now, according to Mrs. McGriff, diversity,
Diversity.
um, business acumen, statistics,
Yes.
and what was it, health law,
Yes.
legal stuff? Okay,
Yes.
that's 4. How does your response to that question compare to those of other board members? Let's look. We'll play board members. Ms. Janetka and I are the same board.
Okay.
We consider your board to be a great board. If yes, why not, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go see what else they say here. Formal dimensions of great boards. Board roles and responsibilities, committee structures and responsibilities. That was in your list, wasn't it, Ms. Janetka?
Which point?
I'm looking at this middle column.
Okay.
See where it says, issue of the online newsletter, great boards, these dimensions include.
Oh, these, okay, include, yes.
Okay, board responsibilities and roles, that was in your list too, wasn't it?
Yes, that was.
Okay, so that's sort of important as the first one, wouldn't you say?
Yes. You
Sort
have
of.
to define your role.
Yeah, exactly. Because particularly Blue Cross Blue Shield has a board, right?
They do.
It's voluntary. They're not compensated, are they?
I don't know.
Yes. Well, they're not.
They're not?
Formally, no.
Are you sure?
They're not formally, no, no, they're not. However, they do receive expenses. So if we meet in Orlando, Florida, I get reimbursed for that. If I have to pay out of pocket for various things, I have to.
Oh dear.
So, there are some people who think if you go on the board and you've donated your 1,500 or whatever, that is the extent of what you need to do. Now, there's far more to it. Is that correct, Ms. Janetka?
Yes.
I think it falls under the heading of what is generally known as the legal concept of due diligence. So, one of the responsibilities that occurred even for nonprofit after the collapse of Enron and then the disaster of the 2007 recession was that even board members of nonprofits have to affix their personal signature to financial documents indicating that they know what's in it by their signature. They've reviewed it and have approved of it. So that in the event that something goes wrong, you can't hide behind, I didn't know.
Not only that, but I can tell you from a hospital system that I am required to obtain the board's social security number and date of birth and submit that to all of the insurance companies that we do business with. They have to have on file the official record of it. I need an armed guard when I go get that material. They won't even email it to me. It's unbelievable.
Given what you've told us about Doug White, maybe that's not a bad idea, right?
No kidding.
Now, it says committee structures and responsibilities. That goes along with the roles. There's going to be a finance committee, most likely. It is not unusual to have an ethics committee. There's going to be a hospital standards committee, most likely, to oversee all the responsibilities that go with the accreditations. There's going to be a risk management committee in most modern hospitals. Now, you didn't get into risk management with Mrs. McGriff, did you, Ms. Janetka?
No, she didn't have a lot of information on that.
Okay. But do you know what it is?
Yes.
Can you tell us?
Well, in my mind, risk management is fraud and making sure that your stuff isn't stolen and that it's protected and that, that would include financial information, probably include hospital equipment, pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, that's part of it. That's definitely part of it. Have you done your due diligence to protect all of the drugs and equipment, computers, etc., that fall under the board's purview? And if you're on a committee that has that oversight, you take on more specific responsibilities. But that's not all risk management is. Risk management also has to do with people who are injured or damaged
So I was just gonna say.
in some way by the hospital.
Oh, yes, that.
This
Like malpractice?
damages can occur as a result of rolling out of bed, because improper restraints or none, improper nursing monitoring, losing patients, people slipping and falling on
Performing
stairwells.
surgery on the wrong limb. It's not
Yeah.
funny, but
No, I had an orthopedic surgeon come in and said, "Do you know what knee I'm supposed to work on?" I said, "Yes." And he pointed to it. He had a marker.
that's exactly right.
That's right. Good.
Lifespan will do that at every point now.
Exactly, because there have been occasions in the past when that mistake was made. People falling, et cetera, people experiencing malpractice, people experiencing bad things going on one way or another with the service they received and are upset and angry. Now, risk management is both procedural, what you can do in the hospital to minimize and or mitigate your risks, and those risks change every time a building is added, remodeled, repurposed for something, and ultimately, of course, even used. So you can buy insurance for this. And as you might imagine, buying insurance to cover damages of that kind is quite expensive. The insurance premium can be mitigated if you have a board committee devoted to risk management with regular reporting requirements and regular oversight activities from that board committee. And in some cases, actually being there and watching the risk management team actually do stuff. That can help lower your premium because you can prove to the insurer, we're really after this kind of stuff. We're looking for exposed wires. We're looking for jagged edges. We're looking for windows that are possible places that people can get out of and do damage to themselves and or others. There are hospitals that are self-insured.
Yes.
If you're a brave hospital and you think you have the financial wherewithal to do it, it can save a great deal of money on premiums. On the other hand, if you're self-insured and you are not doing extra due diligence in risk management, in all the areas that I've listed, probably others I haven't, one suit can pull you down and you will be bare. Financially, legally, fiduciarily, if you're a nonprofit because you're working in the public interest and you're working with other people's money. So going bare, as they say in the trade, has been done. It is cheaper. It's also higher risk. But that's the kind of thing that goes into risk management. So having a committee who's going to be devoted to probably a routine reexamination of either the insurance policy or the self-insurance is probably going to be required reading on the board, if not exclusively for the committee, and certainly by the other board members also. Now that's a major responsibility for the board, particularly since the board is going to sign off on documents that say we do this stuff. You mentioned accreditation, right, Ms. Janeka?
Yes.
Okay, well, part of accreditation is you accept the accrediting report, and if there are deficiencies, you have to make sure that those deficiencies are met. And if you don't, there are consequences that have to be suffered because you didn't. The board can't say, we didn't know we had to do that. That's not an excuse. You can't do it. So the board needs to pay attention to that. That's why we go through these roles and responsibilities. That's why they're at the top of the list. Now note, Ms. Janeka, the third bullet, board information and education. Now, for
Yes.
my money, that means probably continuing education, that it goes on the line. And if you don't want to do that on the board, you probably should be on the board. This business about cybersecurity, I'm of an opinion that there's a board member who's going to be stuck with that assignment, or maybe even a whole committee. I was familiar with most of what you said, not all of it by any means. And I can't imagine a board member who is a part-time board being able to be up on all that, plus do whatever he or she does to make the kinds of money that he or she would have to make to donate to stay on the board. That means more than just going to the annual gala, which will be featured in the local newspaper on a Friday or a Thursday or whatever. So one of the questions our own Ms. Almeida raised a couple of weeks ago is, could she do, do you mind if I said this? Could she do extra credit? And I'm willing to go there and for both of them, if you want to do them. You don't have to. You take the grades where they fall. Now you're going to be responsible for the grades that are in the grade book. Right? That will include others that we'll be adding later on, which won't be that much later. The e-portfolio, are there some videos that are supposed to be produced, a reflection video?
One reflection video.
So we're going to do that. That has to be done. That's part of the base course, right? But I have some wiggle room for some other grades, and they can change or not, depending on what you want to do. Now, here's what I'm going to propose. You with me, Ms. Janetka?
I'm listening.
Okay. I'm going to appoint you as a consultant, kind of like Mrs. McGriff. Except you're going to be consulting boards and board members. So your task is to do what I just did. Go to the literature. Find out what best practices are for boards. And then develop a training curriculum for your areas. Now, Ms. Almeida, yours is cybersecurity in hospitals. And Mrs. Janetka is a little more far-reaching, so we can hone it down to one of those areas that Mrs. McGriff mentioned. Part about knowing about how to run a business, financial stuff, part about becoming diverse. Now I forgot what the other two were. You remember Mrs. Janetka?
Was it the law?
Yes.
Medical
Legal,
law.
health
Legal
law,
stuff.
and something, there was another one. Was there a fourth?
Was it clinical for the physicians?
Yes.
Specialization.
I didn't mention that in hospital, definitely. All right, so Ms. Janetka, you choose one of those areas.
Okay.
Now, I assumed you want to stay with cybersecurity. So what you're going to do is then find out what the best practices of boards are in each of the areas that we just discussed, mentioned. So Ms. Janetka, you're going to choose one of those four, correct?
Yes.
Which one do you have in mind?
I was actually leaning towards law, but I don't know if that one might be scary, so I don't know. We'll see.
No, I think it's good. By the way, I can say that I have invited, I don't remember her first name, Ms. Narana, Blue Cross Blue Shield's legal department, she's the head legal over there, to be our March 7th keynote person, talking about health law and social justice. So, if Blue Cross Blue Shield has a corporate office of legal health law, I suspect Ms. Janetka, there's something there that a board member probably needs to know.
Definitely.
So if you would like to do that, that works for me. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to give me best practices in those areas. And then you're going to design a curriculum based on the literature about what a board member would need to know about cybersecurity from a hospital-wide perspective as a board member, and health law for Ms. Janetka.
Yes.
It's going to be fully sourced, it's going to be APA-style citations.
I always wondered what you preferred there, because there's so many to choose
APA.
from.
What format do you want?
Like a paper, or do you want it
Yes.
PowerPoint?
Well, if you want to do a PowerPoint as an attachment, that's fine. But I need some documents that tells me what it is you're doing, what is in the curriculum. If you want to arrange sample presentations, that's fine with me. You can certainly do that. All right? Now, depending on what I see, I will award grade credit as extra. So what that means is whatever value you get out of the paper, it gets added to the total score at the end. So if you have a 60, and I just made that up, I didn't say you did, see? And you do this extra credit, it gets added to the 60 points. So it could be worth 20 points, depending on what you do. And this can't be subject to revision like we did with the health memo, health economics memo, the Six Sigma assignment has to be first time through. Now, if you do that, then that paper could be alone worth 20 points. So your number would be minus instead of an F.
That'd be nice.
So you have 70. That turns it into 90. That's an A minus, not a C. So there's a lot of writing on this side. Right?
Oh, I agree.
So there you go. Now, Ms. Janetka, can you follow that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, now you understand that I'm not requiring you to do this.
Right.
If you don't want to do it, you don't have to.
Oh, I'm a big fan of extra credit.
Okay, I'm not, I want it clear on the record that I'm not forcing you to do this. I'm responding to a request by Ms. Garcia. And I'm willing to do it. Now, let's think about how we're going to do this. First of all, there seems to be a proclivity. In the capstone outline. For people writing things that don't have to do with the sections of the outline that I've created. There's words in there. There are words there. But if it says context of capstone, and I start reading what the literature has said in the past 20 years about, I don't know, whatever the topic is. This is a recent example, as of this morning. That's not what the heading says. If we go back to the health economics memo, the heart of that exercise was about health economics. And so when I began reading it, the first thing I should have seen was health economics is an important field to hospital administration. That's the way I would have said it. You could have said it another way, but the point of the is that it began with that piece. And a brief explanation about what health economics was as applied in hospitals. Then the application that was written about, whether it be telemedicine or EMT transports or whatever, would have followed. And then the conclusion would have said, here's an example of how the hospital can save money, create better quality, using a concept that is generally thought of as academic, but is a practical area, health economics, period. In addition, there are other areas that could benefit from health economics, and you would have listed them. And that's the way I would have expected it to be written, particularly given that the assignment was you're going to write it to a CEO who was not necessarily as well versed as you would turn out to be once you started looking at the literature and the resources that were in the course resources section of health economics. So, I don't have an outline for this, but if I were doing it, here's what I would say. Board responsibilities and roles. I wouldn't make that long. But the reason that you're going to write the rest of it has to do with board's responsibilities and roles, right? So after I briefly mentioned that the board responsibilities are important as a legal matter, as a fiduciary matter, as a clinical matter, and as a good management practice, which could be subheadings. Then I would say what follows here is an example area in which boards would have responsibility and would receive training. So in here, in this segment, this section, Hamida would introduce cybersecurity briefly. Cybersecurity for hospitals is critical because cybersecurity does the following things. Cybersecurity is key to the healthy practice of medicine within a hospital context and the safety of the patients, period. Now, Roman numeral 3, basically. The training curriculum for this area. Now, for Ms. Almeida is going to be cybersecurity. For Ms. Janetka, it's going to be health law. So the first thing is, what is it a board member needs to know about either one, cybersecurity, or two, health law? Because you can't cover, it's not going to be a course in cybersecurity like Doug White teaches, or that Ms. Nerona at Blue Cross Shield probably took. It's not going to be a course. This is going to be training. It's going to cover the key points of board fiduciary responsibility in this area. So, then you would then create the curriculum. Now, it can't go on for hours and days. It can be repeated. It can be updated. And I would probably say that. When you're dealing with board members, you're going to have limited time, and you're probably going to have to do it outside of a board meeting. Now, Ms. Almeida, you seem to have some experience with boards. Their meetings can run, what, 3 to 5 hours? 2 to 4?
They try to limit it to about an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, do they do that? I never
They
was
go
in-
over.
Yes,
over.
they always go over. I've never been on a board that kept to a schedule.
Right.
All right, so this would have to be done then, not on the same night as the board meeting. It's probably going to be done on the weekend when people are free. And it's going to have to be a matter of, this is part of your board responsibility, just like it says in the list. So this is, once you sign on to the board, you got to do periodic board training. So you're going to have these folks in for, I don't know, a couple of hours on a Saturday morning, 10 to noon. Okay? That gives the early risers a chance to get on the golf course at 6 a.m., gets the late afternoon people into the cocktail hour later in the afternoon. It works. So imagine it's going to be done on a Saturday, and it's going to be done for approximately 2 hours, 10 to noon. Okay? You can change the schedule.
2 hours of material, is that what you're asking?
That's essentially what I'm saying. Now, factored in there is not going to be straight lecture. It can't be. Because these people are, well, they're important. So you can talk to them and you can talk with them, but you can't probably lecture to them. You can present stuff, but you've got to be very careful. So this curriculum that you're going to deliver has to have some content, and it has to fit into this time schedule, and it has to be directed at this kind of audience, the board audience.
So no test after the curriculum, after the course. Not for that.
I don't know, and I did. I did. They didn't like it. I probably still do it. Just because you can't manage what you can't do. You know, we can't manage, I don't know what you knew before. We could have done that even for test post test, but here's what you should know at the end. Now, you can do that gently. There are techniques. Now, one of the things that we probably look for in the literature is what are the best practices in doing assessment of board members' knowledge?
I feel like you always find everything so easily.
Well, that's because I'm guessing, and I get lucky. I won, my daughter left for the track about 2 on Saturday, and I reached in and I said, here, $2 on the nose. What race? You pick it, I don't care, here's $2. Came back with 20. The horse that won, I can't remember the name of the horse that won, but the horse that didn't had the name Alabama. I said, yes, that was a wise non-choice. So there are ways to assess this stuff. And you don't necessarily have to call it test. In fact, you probably don't have to call it assessment. There's language you can probably use, but I don't want to impose my personal style on what you would do and what the literature said. If there's something in the literature that says I shouldn't have tested them, okay. Credit me with error. But I also tell them, you know, you're on a board, and the board is a group, and the group is strongest when there's a consensus. And if you can't help reach that consensus, you ought to get off the board. No, you shouldn't. Came the response to a question I never asked. Because I didn't ask you, can you do it? So I followed up with, okay, why would you stay on a board that you don't agree with? So that I can tell them, I told you so. Not because I'm more intelligent or even that arrogant. So I can stay and say, I told you so. And the damage is already done, and you're adding to it by pulling at the loop, right? That's top line leadership. Yeah, that's exactly what you ought to do. Take that. Now, you know that's not what you're supposed to do. You can't, because if it comes to that, we'll vote you off, which you should have done now voluntarily to start with. So that's a bit of a digression, but boards can be prickly like that. So you want to split the difference between the importance of what they need to know and how it's done. Okay? So that's your extra credit assignment. Ms. Janetka, questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, you got it?
I think so, yes.
All right, so now, let's see. We now have some due dates in announcements. This has been particularly happening here, this movement of slow change, but it happens on my computer, not quite as slow. Okay, course due dates, here we go. Okay, so I need the e-portfolio on 7/31, which is Monday. Right away. Since we've added this extra credit assignment.
Sorry?
I said, but let's wait, because I've added this extra credit assignment, which could presumably alter your reflections. Plus create a grade for an extra credit assignment. So you get 2 scores for 1 effort. So if that's the case, why don't we do this? Why don't we say e-portfolio with the extra credit assignment and all the other contents on, what is that, August 5. And grades are due Monday. So that gives me a chance to go through all of the stuff you did this semester. So everything you did, all the writing assignments, 2 memos, 6 Sigma and so forth, reflection video, the extra credit assignment go into the e-portfolio. That way, I can review everything in the PA 550 course and square it with my grade book. So we make sure that grades are there for all the assignments and have been adjusted and as dictated by the quality of your extra credit assignment. Because I can alter other grades as well as add to the grades.
I wanted to ask you about the quiz. We had talked about, I started the quiz at work.
Oh, and I didn't reset it, did I? You know, I said to myself, yes, this weekend, somebody asked me to reset a quiz. I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Do it. I can't do it now, but I'll do it tomorrow. All right, now, we are in touch by email if you have questions, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
Timeline is probably a little too tight for drafts, but you know, if you want to send me an outline that shows me where you're going to go with it, that might be easier to edit and organize and focus and streamline and whatever. You can do that. You don't have to pick really good outlines.
Can you talk a little bit about what you'd like to see in the final reflections? I feel
There are
like
two elements that must be in all reflections. One,
What did I learn and how do I know I learned it?
that's two. The first one is, what do you now know? Or as Ms. Jeanette explained, what did you learn? And how do you know you learned? So, you're going to tell me I now know stuff. For example, I now have a deeper understanding of health economics. It's no longer simply a concept that I've heard used in speech or in the paper or wherever I've seen it, but I now understand that it affects applications in actual health administration practice. I learned the importance of that in the applications because I was able to write an assignment about it. And the assignment had key paragraphs in which I explained in ways that I wouldn't have been able to before what health economics is and how it applies to practical level education. Now, that's not the only thing we learned. We learned about Six Sigma, right? We learned about cybersecurity. We learned about billing. And Ms. Jeanette probably has more. She and I have a steeper learning profile on billing than you do. Because, I'm willing to bet you on something.
Oh,
All right. Well, it may not be what we learned, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is you. So there are two elements of the outline in reflections. What it is you learned and how you know you learned it. Telling me what we did is not telling me what you looked at, what you know, or how you learned, how you learned.
so wish I had this conversation with you several weeks ago.
Well, there'll be other courses in Zambia, and you can apply that, and we can have it for other people. Plus, you got a window of opportunity here to overcome whatever deficiencies there may have been in previous work. So let's climb on. Questions, Ms. Tanaka?
No, I think I got it.
Okay, so you can send me an email with an outline, maybe a question if you need one. But we're going to have the e-portfolio due on the 5th. You need to start putting your outline together pretty quickly and getting it on email. So I would anticipate it being in my inbox sometime Monday, which is the 31st. Isn't that the 31st of July? Yeah. Or the 1st. Now, suppose you have a calamity. You fall down the steps and you twist your ankle. Someone in the family has an illness, whatever the situation may be. Okay, I have a little flexibility with grades, but I don't think you ladies are likely to do this, but there are people who just don't tell me that, expect me to know it, and then reappear when deadlines have passed. And I won't name names, but it's happened as recently as this summer. So if you need extra time, just let me know. That way I can plan my schedule because I got stuff I got to do. So it's just a matter of communication. Fair enough? If you need more time, we can work out more time. It can't be unlimited time.
No.
But I'm willing to be a little bit flexible. Is that coming through for you, Ms. Janetka?
Yeah, that works. Thanks.
Okay. And we have a plan? We know what we're going to do.
Yes.
Very good. Well, even though we've been basically doing an independent study this summer, I kind of enjoy coming to these classes. And,
I have as well. Is this your last class, Dorothy?
Yes, this is my last class, and then I start PA 590 in the fall.
Oh, good luck.
Thanks. I'm gonna need it.
we'll get it done, Ms. Janetka. Now, don't be one of those students who shows up and doesn't use my outline.
Doesn't use what?
My outline.
Oh gosh, no, I've learned that.
It'll make it a whole lot easier.
Yes, you got to use the outline.
Now, there will be an online component to 590,
Okay.
and it requires posting on a regular routine basis. And the posting follows the outline. So what you're going to be able to do is essentially post drafts of each of the sections that I can go through and comment while we're not actually sitting in a classroom like we are tonight. There will be class meetings,
Okay.
but those class meetings are likely to be more productive if people have posted on the forum so that we can move forward with the other stuff. So,
Okay.
for example, we'll be talking about the HSRB, Human Subject Review Board requirements. We'll be talking about the required human subjects training. We'll be going through the application for HSRB, which if you follow through with the forums and the 590 document, there will actually be a document that will emerge from the forums following the outline that's in resources. Once you do all that, much of the language that you need for the HSRB application has been written. It's not in their outline, but my sections can apply to what it is they're looking for in very direct ways. We'll go through all that in the class. But the point is, if you do that on a regular basis, then when we do classes, they're going to be more productive. And they can be so productive, Ms. Janetka, that it is possible for any single student, Dorothy Janetka, for example, to complete the 590 project before the end of the semester.
Okay.
Which means then that you can set in motion the HSRB application, which then gives HSRB time to look it over, and then you begin in the spring semester to gather your data, or as late as the late fall, depending on where you get in, because once they say you can do it, then you can go do it, whether you're enrolled at 599 or not. You will have to enroll at 599 eventually.
Right.
But the point is, you can start, as soon as they say yes, you can start gathering data, and you have the plan to do that in the PA 590 document. So the document is going to tell me and you specifically what you're going to do. You can then follow through step by step as soon as they say yes. Now, if for whatever reason they ask for revisions, you can give them the revisions. That doesn't mean you have to rewrite the thing. They will tell you specifically what revisions they want, and you go into the document that you've submitted, write the revision language, and then highlight it in color so they can see what it is you did to meet their revision requirements.
Okay.
Now, if you write for me the way I'm going to ask you to in the forum, threads, and in that turn into the 590 document, you should have no problem getting past HSRB the first time.
Okay.
Bear in mind that no one has been denied.
Okay.
No one's ever been denied. They've been delayed because they want HSRB application revisions. You don't want to still be fighting HSRB at the beginning of the spring semester if you're doing 590 in the fall. You want to start gathering data. Now, the capstone presentations are going to be April 28th,
Okay.
I think. So last week of April is the week before the annual conference.
Oh, okay.
And despite my best intentions, I didn't get the second component of the May 2nd conference, and yet I didn't get a chance to make the phone call. But I got one speaker. Her name is Risha Jones, or Risha Grant. She's coming from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Topic is social justice, and she's written a book about business that she says has a BS. It's a biased sign-offs. It's a gap. And I thought, this is a person who can bring a perspective that we don't frequently get. And it sure exists in the workplace, in the public sector. I don't mean to prime Ms. Almeida, but I'm willing to bet that men in the same position you are make more money.
Yes, they do, and they get promoted.
Yes,
Far more
they do.
frequently.
Yes, they do. Isn't that interesting how that happened? Well, Ms. Grant is coming. Perhaps we'll shed some light on that. So if you can make that conference, come on. We're going to do it again at Rick. I just got, and we may move it to another building because, as Alma says, they've got a brand new building that is retrofitted.
Is that right? It's a huge campus.
Yes, with ample parking and rooms that will accommodate the group that we bring.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So this HSRB process, this application, is this specific to Roger Williams? So I know I have a friend at work who completed the MBA program and she didn't have to go through all of that.
MBAs are different.
Oh.
It depends on what they did. If you're working with finances, for
She was, no, it wasn't an MBA, it was a Master's in Health Administration, so MHA.
I'm surprised that that's generally. Wait a minute, how did she gather it?
She just submitted a project at the end of the year. It was more like a paper than a capstone project. Because we were talking about this.
Well, eventually yours will turn into a capstone. I mean, a paper. You will have a paper. The paper goes with the outline. You still have access to 501? No, you don't. You will, Ms. Jadeka will have it in 590. You
What
didn't
was
download it when you
501?
read it?
What was 501? I can't
Very
remember.
first course.
That was back in 2008.
Okay. I don't know how I got to it now. Oh, wait. HSRB has changed its website, so
Oh, I was just on it. Yeah.
the template application used to be in there. But last time I looked, I couldn't find it, and student recommended that you can go to it through the browser. But HSRB, I sometimes known as an institutional review board. If you get federal money, you have to do it. So I'd be surprised if a school didn't require it. If you weren't working with animals or people, there's usually an HSRB type protocol wherever you go. If you're doing interviews or surveys, even those fall under human subject review.
Oh, I see it, visual types of research.
Yes. Now, I'm having Mr. Cranston go through it. Even though he's not actually going to be working with humans, he's working with human records, records of patients. Now, as soon as you tell HSRB you got patient records, they're going to want to know all kinds of stuff about how you're protecting them and whether or not they're going to be, how intrusive you're going to be. So he's going to go through that. So it would strike me as odd if somebody did a project that involved even surveying of students at an institution didn't have to do something.
I'm wondering if the university was accredited. It was like an online 1.5 year program. And I don't know.
Well, that raises some interesting questions, doesn't it? I don't know. Those vary in quality and what they require. So, if you're not getting federal money, you don't have to do it. So an online license may not very well. Maybe for tribesmen,
Right, maybe.
like the University of Phoenix. It's not. It's a private institution. It's proprietary. It makes money. It's not an nonprofit. So I'm guessing if you go there, you have to go through HSRB because you're not getting federal money. Okay.
I was just curious.
I don't blame you. Ms. Janetka, just as a heads up, I think I've mentioned this before, but since we're on the subject, you're going to have to go through HSRB because you're going to survey folks in Walgreens or wherever. You will need permission from Walgreens to do that and be on site.
Yes.
And that needs to be in writing
Okay.
on official letter.
Okay. Yeah, I've already made the connections within the organization, so I know who to go to for that.
Okay, good. Now, I will try to remember to do what I used to do all the time during the course of 590. Can you still do the project? Every week, I'll ask, can you still do the project? Strange things sometimes happen. Now, Ms. Janek indicates she's already talked to somebody. Okay? That's good. That's a good start. That's not quite the same thing as putting it in writing. And it may be, Ms. Janetka, that they want to see your instrument, which is fine with me. There's nothing to be hidden. But I frequently find that people who are afraid of answers don't like some of the questions that appear on scale surveys. Now, that may not be the case with you, Ms. Janetka, but it's happened in the past. So, we want to be on our guard for that. Oh, I think it was on our own Ms. Bramley. I did. I said repeatedly every semester. Can you still do this project? Yes. Can you still do this project? Yes. It's time to do the project. Can you do it? No. They won't let me on campus. So we had to do some scrambling. She ended up with a way to do it. I don't like that to spend. Now, those are generally the outliers. The mainstream folks, the mainstream of Capstone HSRB applications go through first time. Worst it happens, they want a couple of revisions. Or you didn't write it plain enough, so they don't understand exactly what your project is. So, if you're going to create the outreach message, marketing message, Ms. Janetka, for Walgreens, or are you going to use one of theirs?
I was going to use one of theirs and evaluate it.
Okay, so you want to be clear in your HSRB. Your application is for a project that only evaluates / assesses a marketing campaign.
Yes, that's correct.
It is not the marketing.
Right.
Good. So we can say that as clearly as I hope I just articulated it.
Yes, just if the message was successful.
Very first thing they ask, what is your project? That's the number one item in the application. So you want to be clear. You don't want to write a page and a half. But you want to put in a paragraph that you are doing an evaluation of an outreach program. Now, what I advised the student this afternoon to do in that section Let's take some of the literature cited in the PA 590 project. There is an outline component that says backup. And one of the sections in there has to do with who thinks this program needs to be valuable. Now, this is where you can use the literature that you put in that section. So you can point out to HSRB that what you're proposing has appeared in the literature, in research, and other people have done. Follow me?
Yes.
You don't have to write a book about it. You could just say this follows the work of such researchers as, and you give them APA styles of sources. And then in the appendix, which you're allowed to have, that's where your references go. So you come at them from both sides. You use their outline in the way they want it. You write it plain English, so because I have a section in my outline that says, okay, tell me what your project is, your premise is, in plain English. Because that's HSRB. That's who you're writing for. They don't know you. They haven't been working with you like I have. So you have to write it in clear, plain English. If you do what I just asked you to do, you shouldn't have a problem with that section.
Okay. Great.
Now, they're going to ask you about participants. Again, you want to be clear. There are customers that come to Walgreens locations in Chicago or wherever they're going to be. You give them street addresses. You give them store names. If there's more than one store, give them more than one store. No subject, no participant will be below the age of 17. All participation will be voluntary. Now they're going to want to know how you select them. Do not say, I'm going to do a random sample, because you're not. In order to do a random sample, you're going to have a random number generator, which is in SPSS. Or you can go to the internet and pull up a random number table, which I've done in a couple of classes. You've seen me do that, have you, Ms. Janeka?
Yes.
So if you tell them you're going to do random selection, they're going to want to see that. They're going to want to know what your random number generator is or the random number table that you're going to use. You're not doing that. You're doing a convenient sample on a purposive basis. PURPOSIVE. You're going to take who you can get when they're in the store. And the people you get are like the people in other stores who get a message like this. That's what makes it purposive.
Okay.
All right? Now, I won't go any further with all the rest of the details, but those are the key first two sections. And you have to be very clear and very direct to make sure that you're saying what you need to say and not put a bunch of extra literature stuff in there that I might appreciate, but doesn't complete your HSRB application. We can talk about it once you're in the course, but that's basic outline and guidance. I'm sorry I couldn't find the application. Did you find it on the website, Ms. Hamidi?
I did.
I just, once again,
HSRB.
HSRB.
Did you find the template?
I just typed that in, and then it actually says HSRB application, Roger Williams University.
All right, where did you type this in? To
In the
start with?
browser, right there, I just typed in
Yes,
your HSRB.
like that.
Yes. Number 2.
Damn, you're good. I'm trying to do that, and I thought I'd done it right. Okay, here it is, yeah. There's the template. This hasn't changed. This is exactly, see the first two sections?
Yes.
Okay. This is where the plain English piece goes. This is where that literature citation that somebody else has done it goes. Here the participates. Now, when we get to the research design and all the scales and stuff, that's what this section number 3 is. And consent procedures, how you going to get the informed consent document into their hands, how you going to get it back. They provide for you an informed consent template, you see?
Mm-hmm.
Use theirs.
Okay.
Now, you might have to adapt some of the language a little bit to accommodate your context, but use theirs. Don't try to go to the internet and find one. Now, once you submit the application, there will be a cover sheet that I have to sign off on, and here it is. So you will send that to them. You will send the template to them, and then they will go through the approval process. They'll ask for this, and you will fill in your part, send it to Ms. Koo. We will sign it. We'll keep a copy and send it to them. Cool?
Yes, cool.
All right. So thanks to Ms. Almeida, we're now fully informed about the application. All right? We got it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, doke.
All right.